Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Thank you so very much. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Dezi Shepperd. She's here to celebrate Cassidy and the mixed up numbers. Before Dezi joins us, we want to let you know about a very special series of episodes we're going to be debuting on the Reading with Your Kids podcast beginning Earth Day, April 22nd, 2021. We're calling it Protecting the Planet with Your Kids, and I'm going to be joined by Alexia Brown. Alexia is passionate about learning how best to help the Earth, and she wants to help others learn with her. And so she's brought together a number of fantastic authors that are going to let us know how we can work with our kids, how we can inspire our kids to become active and to help protect the world. It really is fun. We're having a blast putting this series together. You're going to love Alexia. You're going to love the guests that we're bringing on. Protecting the Earth with Your Kids, beginning Earth Day, April 22nd, 2021, here on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Joining us on the line right now from Brooklyn, where all the cool kids live, in New York City. She is the author of Cassidy and the Mixed Up Numbers. Please welcome to the show, Dezi Shepperd. Dezi, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Dezi and I were just having a very pleasant conversation about the dark underbelly of Boston in the 70s and 80s. And so now that we're all cheered up with each other, we're going to be talking about her lovely picture book. And Cassidy and the Mix-Up Numbers, it's about the unseen disability Dyscalculia. Can you start off by telling us who is Cassidy?
So the name Cassidy comes from my best friend's daughter, but Cassidy actually is me as a little girl. I actually have dyscalculia. So, yeah. That's why.
So
talk about it so much.
Yeah, well, then you got to talk about it a little bit more, please. People are very familiar with the term dyslexia. I don't think as many people are familiar with the term dyscalculia. Can you share a little bit about it?
So dyscalculia is basically, it's similar to dyslexia in that you mix up numbers. And so, for example, you might struggle with learning your times table as a child. You might have problems with in algebra class with the order of operation, remembering the steps to do things like that. And there's all these amazing ways that you can overcome that by using things like math, manipulatives. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, it might present itself as you're having issues with spatial reasoning. For example, it took me a little longer to learn how to park because I couldn't really get parallel parking. Mm-hmm. So that's dyscalculia.
Wow. Now, do they have an idea of what causes it? Is it a different part of the brain is not firing the way it would typically fire? Or?
So there are some people have it, I've read information where it said something traumatic happened to the child during the time where they were learning this math function. And then it could be just neurologically, you're just not connecting with information.
Interesting. That's really, really interesting. We've had some experts here on the podcast talking a little bit about dyslexia. And one of the things that I was really surprised to find out is that there aren't a lot of kids who grow up speaking Mandarin Chinese, grow up speaking and reading Mandarin Chinese that have dyslexia, because it's a completely different system, whereas we have letters and kids need to decode the letters, and Here in English, of course, we have 26 letters in our alphabet, and unfortunately, we have 42 different sounds that we're that we're listening to. So, all the rules that you learn as a kid don't really kind of match up, and that's not an issue in Mandarin because each character is its own word. So you're just memorizing the words. But this sounds like something completely different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is completely different. So that was very interesting to learn. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, I'm really fascinated. It's, learning has been something my beautiful wife has been a teacher for over 33 years. And, one of the things that she's experienced is like every 4 or 5 years, someone comes up with a new way to teach math or a new way to teach reading, and you throw everything else out and bring something brand new in. And it works for some kids and it doesn't work for other kids. And instead of, going back and saying, okay, well, system A worked for some kids and it didn't work for other kids. System B worked for other kids and didn't work for all the kids. Instead of throwing one out and bringing another new one in, can we just kind of like figure out which works for which kids and teach them that way, teach them the way they learn?
Yes, that would be, oh my gosh, that's the magic. Those are the magic words. Like just teach to how all the different children learn. That'd be great.
Hey, can you share a little bit about, you said, you had difficulty learning how to parallel park. I'm imagining it was a little bit different growing up and frustrating for you. Can you share some of that experience?
Yes, of course. So, just to take you back a little bit, at 19, so I graduated high school early at 17 years old, which that was exciting.
Yeah.
But I was not able to get into, a private college because I couldn't pass the PSAT or the SAT at the time. Mm-hmm. So I went to community college and, unfortunately was not prepared at all, and ended up dropping out. And around 22 years old, I was a mom by then, and I needed to buckle down and get my real first job. And I fortunately landed at the New York City Department of Special Education Superintendent's office working for Dr. Lepelstadt. She was my boss at the time. She was the assistant superintendent. I'm very bookish. I'm like a book nerd. And I would spend my lunch hours at the library. And one day I came back from lunch and my boss was like, you are always reading something. Why are you a secretary? Why are you my secretary? I'm like, oh no, I'm about to get fired. Oh my goodness. And she was like, no, come in here, close the door, sit down. Like, I need to understand, what do you aspire to do in life? Why haven't you finished college? So I started getting into my experiences in elementary school, in my primary years, just telling her it was just difficult. And it was always frustrating to hear my teachers tell my parents, oh, she's really smart. She just doesn't focus. She's just not trying hard enough. When that was furthest from the truth. I would go to school, come home, and just spend hours trying to figure out what I missed in class. Mm-hmm. So I also have, as I learned later on, that I also have ADHD. So that it was just a very difficult time. So my boss said to me, I think I understand what's going on here. And she helped me to get tested. And when I was tested, that's when I found out, oh, I have this learning disability. And it's just like the world opened up for me at that moment. I'm learning that I had a learning disability. And my boss, she also then helped me to go back to college. Amazing woman. I just love her to this day. And I actually quit working for her. She wasn't upset about it though. And I went and ended up at a Fortune 500 company in their quality and risk department and I went from being in a pool of secretaries to having my own office. But the difference was made because I now knew that I needed accommodations and I needed to surround myself with educators who understood how my brain processed things. And the day I walked across the stage, to college, it was muddy. I had on galoshes. I'm not gonna lie. It was muddy, but it was the most beautiful day ever because I was able to shed every single label that I'd heard as a child about myself. And the one that will forever, I shed it, but I can't forget it. Will stick in my mind forever is that I was of low average intelligence. I'd heard that term. I heard it once and I read it once. I heard it, a teacher tell my mom. I overheard that. And then I heard, and then I saw it in the report that the doctor, gave me my diagnosis. And as I was walking across that stage, graduating on that muddy day, I had to let go and say, that can't be me. Those words can't define me because of age being on the dean's list. I've been on the dean's list consistently semester after semester. So yeah, I'm just telling myself, you're amazing. You're not all those things. So yeah.
You are amazing. And what a beautiful, beautiful gift your boss gave you. What just a beautiful woman. I really wish that I'd be able to just give her a hug because we need to remember people like that because each one of us has the potential to be that person for somebody else, to see somebody else's potential, to help them see it themselves. And, it might not be something as dramatic as helping somebody realize that they have a learning challenge, but just to be able to help somebody rise up and see how beautiful they are. So the next time you see your old boss, please give her a hug from me.
Tried. She's since retired and I've emailed her and I'm waiting for her to respond now because especially with everything I'm doing now, I just want to I feel like I owe it to her to, let her know how life turned out, after I left her.
Yeah. And what wonderful things you're going to be able to tell her. You're working for a Fortune 500 company. You've written a children's book. You've been on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. It doesn't get any better than that.
It can't. She needs to know this.
Well, I'm really glad that you're here in sharing this story because I know that there are parents out there who have kids who are struggling. And, they're hearing the same kind of things that your parents heard, that, lots of potential there, just not working hard enough, just not focusing. And if only she wasn't as distracted, if only he wasn't as distracted. And, it's not necessarily the fault of the teachers. Teachers have 20, 30 kids in their class, depending on where they are. It could be more. And they don't have the tools to really sit down and do a diagnostic test on every student in their classroom. I'm thinking like every kid should be tested diagnostically when they're in kindergarten, first, second grade to find out the best way that they can learn and give them those opportunities.
I think that would be amazing to do something like that. So and then formulate an educational plan around that testing that's done in kindergarten or first grade, because you can tell in kindergarten or first grade if a child is struggling with their numbers or, struggling with reading or something. You can see that early on.
Yeah. And, it's one of the things that's frustrating is that we've gotten into the mindset that if a kid's not able to sit down at a desk in a row and be quiet for 8 hours and listen to the teacher and then spit back the material that they heard perfectly, that there's something wrong with that child. The reality is that this way of learning is pretty new in human history. Human beings didn't learn in classrooms for most of human history. Human beings learn by interacting with others and going out and doing and working and becoming apprentices. And, it wasn't until the industrial age that we started sitting down. So we're talking, 150 years or so. And so if every child doesn't work in that venue, it's not the kid's fault. It's probably the venue's fault.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that a lot of parents are realizing that now. And that's why this homeschooling movement is really it's, it's been around forever, but it's really taking off now, especially during COVID. A lot of parents who thought, I can't really homeschool my child. Like, I don't have the patience or the know-how to do it, but being forced to stay home, a lot more people are delving into homeschooling and joining homeschooling co-ops.
Yeah.
It's fun what's going on. It's exciting to me what I see going on. I feel like a lot of people are reimagining what they see in terms of education.
I think so too. I really wish that the powers that be, because here in Boston and in places in Chicago where I have friends whose kids are in the system, I don't know if there's a whole lot of reimagining going on. There was a lot of scrambling going on and a lot of panic, during this time.
Right.
Because everybody was in this situation. What are we going to do? I'm really glad that you're seeing people out there taking advantage of this moment in history and reevaluating the way that they're thinking about educating their kids. We've said it here in the podcast so much. You, as a parent, you are your child's first and most important teacher, and that's true throughout your child's life. And I really hope that as a society we can, whether a parent is choosing to homeschool or sending a child to an alternative type of school or a typical public school, that we empower more parents to really understand, to take an active role in their kids' education.
Yes, you are your child's first advocate. I'm currently now. So I'm a person who's a unique learner, and I am parenting a child who's a unique learner. So I'm navigating this entire system from a different perspective, as a former student, but I didn't understand the process until I was in college. So now I'm learning how to navigate the system with a third grader. Mm-hmm. And I just finished prior to talking, right before we got on this call, I just jumped out of a homeschooling group with some other moms, just trying to sort out some solutions and sharing tips. So yeah, we're having great conversations. I'm hopeful.
That's wonderful. And I am really excited. You just shared with me a term that I love, and I'm going to try my best to incorporate it into my life. Unique learner. I think that is such it's such an accurate term, and I think it's one that should be adopted universally. The fact of the matter is we're all unique learners, and I think if we can start looking at kids who struggle with dyslexia, dyscalculia, ADHD, the gifted kids, quote unquote gifted kids, if we can all just realize that everybody is a unique learner, I think it's going to help every kid become a better learner, and it's going to help our society, because the kids who get left behind and end up in trouble, if we invest the money and the resources when they're young, we're not going to have to invest it punishing people on the other end.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of companies that recognize that people who are unique learners are assets to them. Like Microsoft has a program, JP Morgan has a program, Freddie Mac, Ernest Young. There's a few others that have programs that specifically seek out people who are neurodiverse, people who are unique learners. So I'm telling you, I'm excited.
I'm excited too, and we've kind of gone all over the place here in this conversation. No, and it's fine, because I think it's important. I think all of the things that we spoke about are very, very important and relevant to everybody's life. Because even if your child is thriving in a typical public school, and your child is the kid who learns best in that row, in that classroom, listening for 8 hours a day, and then, repeating back what they heard during the day, understanding that everybody is different, is going to benefit that child who thrives in what is a typical situation right now, because they're not going to be distracted by someone who can't learn in that situation and ends up acting out. So, it's like President Kennedy. We were talking about Boston earlier. It's like what President Kennedy said many, many years ago: "A rising tide lifts all boats."
Right.
Yeah. Tell a family sitting down and reading Cassidy and the Mixed Up Numbers, what kind of conversations can they have after reading this book?
I feel like my book, Cassidy and the Mixed Up Numbers, teaches understanding for people who are different from you. You can have a conversation with your child about being confident, because you watch Cassidy come in to the story a little unsure about herself, but you watch as the confidence builds and how important it is to embrace, the beauty that is you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think it's also, we talk about books being mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. I think it's really important for those kids who are, who thrive in a typical classroom situation to understand that not everybody learns in the same way, and to have some empathy and understanding. And it might be the case that kid who's thriving or seemingly thriving or doing okay in a typical classroom, that kid may just learn better using those manipulatives that were so helpful for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she really takes a moment, Cassidy, to teach her classmates, and through, not to give it all away, but through show and tell, mm-hmm. and show them that there's not only one way to solve a puzzle. Mm-hmm. There's different ways to do it, and here's another way that might help you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Really, really exciting. I'm really excited that you've written Cassidy in the Mixed Up Numbers. Now that you are a children's author, and you wrote a book that was really near and dear to your heart, you shared your life story through the character of Cassidy. Have you caught the kid-lit bug? Is this the first of many books to come?
Oh my gosh, I so have caught the kid. I can't help myself. At one time, I have 3 different stories going on in my head that I'm trying to get out. I'm actually going to release another book at the end of March called Emery Jack the Copycat. I'm super excited about it. He's another neurodiverse character. I'm so excited about it. I don't even want to say too much. I just said the title and I didn't even think I was ready, but it's out there now. I keep writing. I have so many characters. I love this. I've always wanted to be a writer. During this process over the last year, I've been quarantining with my mom to help out with my grandmother, who's 93. And my mom, as she saw me have the excitement for writing again, she started bringing out all of my my journals and my books. And she actually gave me a story that I wrote in 6th grade called Disasters. So yeah, I just can't stop writing now. I just can't.
Well, this is beautiful. One of the things, Dezi, I don't know if you realize this, that we've been talking about dyscalculia. We've been talking about how kids can learn best. But what we've really been talking about in so many moments during our conversation tonight, we've been talking about love. You've been surrounded by love, by your mom, by your boss. You are surrounding your grandmother with love. And that's, I think, the best story in the world.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, can you tell everybody where they can find you online?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram at Dezi Writes. You can find me at DeziWrites.com. That's where I hang out most often.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, she hangs out there. She also hangs out on Netflix and Showtime watching disturbing series about my beautiful city of Boston. We've had a great time speaking about dyscalculia, about unique learners. about Cassidy and the mixed up numbers, and we've been speaking with our guest, Dezi Shepperd. Dezi, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Morgan Limo. She'll be coming to us from Kampala in Uganda, and she'll be celebrating the trip of your dreams. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, we would love to have you as a guest on the show. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy. It gives you the opportunity to tell thousands of people about your fantastic children's book, and it doesn't cost a thing. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, scroll on down to where it says, Be a Guest. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful. Of course, I want to thank our guest, Dezi Shepperd. Be sure to check out Cassidy and the Mixed Up Numbers. Also want to thank my team, Alejandro Doherty, Fatima Khan, Hannah Pat Opoyski, Alexia Brown. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.